What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Creatively Driven Podcast. My name is Josh, and today we're going to talk about music and what my story is with music. So, starting off, music was always kind of around me as I was growing up. It was always in the background. It was always in car rides. If we had any family get-togethers, there would be music all around there. My aunt would usually have karaoke on. She'd have like Amanda Marshall or, God, I think like Alanis Morissette. Like this is definitely 90s. I was born in 84, so I'm an old fucker. And it was, yeah, a lot of the 90s were definitely on the karaoke thing. So yeah, I was raised with like 70s and 80s like classic rock, and I say that in air quotes because it's almost antique rock now. We're talking like 50 years. But I listened to like Led Zeppelin, The Doors. I mean, obviously the Beatles were there. Yeah, there's a lot of different bands that from that timeline that were a part of my life, and I wouldn't change any of it because that's just what helped foster the relationship of music. So yeah, music was always around. My parents ended up splitting up, and it was, I think, just about grade 7, because I did grade 7 in Ontario, and I remember in music class, we had to pick our instruments, and first choice, I want to take a guess, little drum roll. Yeah, it was drums. It was drums, and then I can't remember my other choices, but I ended up getting stuck with the clarinet, and I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, well, whatever. It's still a music class, right? You had to do it, and I tried to make the best of it, but it was something that I wasn't obviously quite as interested in, so did that, and after that, we moved down to Texas, and I ended up getting more into metal there, and that was a big part of my life was like Slipknot and Pantera, and I mean, being in Texas and Pantera is from Texas, like arguably Texas is the most metal state in the States. It was pretty cool to have that introduced to me there. So Slipknot, I started to really gravitate towards their lyrics, and I don't know what it was about those Crazy Nine Bastards that just really, I really dug into them. Like I said, I looked at their lyrics, like I just really had to know like what they were singing, like what exactly was going on, and I was always like really drawn towards the drums. So yeah, Joey Jordison, their drummer, definitely captivated me, was somebody I really aspired to be able to play like, and I got into it. I even listened to that album, they're self-titled, as I was going to sleep like a lot. So I promise I'm just as sane as you are. So with that said, I ended up really getting into them as a band, and I never picked up any instruments down there. I lie. I'm sorry. I ended up picking up bass guitar. I gave that a very subtle try, and I didn't really get into it too much, but I kind of dabbled in it, and it didn't really give me enough drive to want to pursue it. So I kind of set that down. After that, I ended up moving back to Ontario in about '02. And when I got back there, I was living with my mom and my sister at the time, and I was there for a while, but I ended up wanting to be around my dad more, so I moved down to where he was. This is coming around '05 now. It was around that time where in January of '05, I saw Slipknot live, and I call that my first concert, but I did see some other concerts earlier in life, like at air shows with my dad and some family friends. But I call this my first concert because it was the first one that I chose to be at. And it was Slipknot, it was Killswitch Engage, it was Damn 13, and I believe In Flames, but don't quote me on that. My memory is starting to leave me. And I ended up loving it. Like, that show was amazing. I was blown away. Slipknot as a whole they were doing pretty good then, and I was just really inspired to go and pick up the drums. So the next month rolled around, February. I went and I picked up some drums. I packed them up in my car, took them home. Nobody was at home yet, so took them down the basement, got them all set up, and I was pumped. I was so stoked. And I went upstairs, and Dad got home not long afterwards, and kind of listened to him about how his day was. And I just said, "Hey, Dad, like, I need to show you something." And so I took him downstairs, and as we're walking downstairs, he looks at me and he's like, "What did you get?" I took him into the room, and the look on his face, I think it was a massive eye roll. And yeah, it wasn't quite disappointment, but anybody who's anybody knows that people that want to play drums, nobody's going to be happier than the person playing the drums. Their parents are probably not going to be thrilled with the noise. So had those. I taught myself. I listened to music more actively, more intently. I was just trying to pay more attention to what I was hearing and how I could emulate it, and just, finding a sense of time and being able to put everything together. So I did that, and I was playing drums for probably a good year and a half, something like that. And I ended up jamming with these guys, and there was, I want to say, a good handful of jams, but we called ourselves Amongst the Thorns, and we were, I don't know, we definitely were basically just a garage jam band at that point. But we had a few good songs, and it was good to get together, a couple times a week. And I would literally take my drums apart at home, set them up there, like pack them into my car, and it ended up being a big drum kit. Like, if you look up Joey Jordison's drum kit, that was what I wanted, and that was basically what I built. I think it was like a 20-piece drum kit. There are videos of me literally crawling in under my drum rack to get down and around to my drum throne to be able to play my drums. So with that in mind, it was basically at that point minus the drum rack. And so the bass player of our band, Amongst the Thorns, his name was Dale Ross, and he actually played in this band called Ashes of Ruin before, whose guitar player Clayton would, I didn't know this, but would soon become, one of my best friends. So fast forward a couple of years, because I ended up moving back up with my mom and my sister. Work had kind of started slowing down, and I kind of did a bit of a path change for that. And I ended up starting to work at a Max gas station. So I was living at my mom and my sister's house, and I had picked up, there was a classical guitar there, a nylon string one that was left there by one of my sister's friends. And I started to dabble at that, and I was really interested in being able to play here and there, because whenever I was at a band practice, we went to some buddies, and they're a wicked band. I don't recall what they had for a name, but their drummer TJ, they ripped up this song, and song ended, he got up, he went over, picked up a guitar. Their guitar player Graham went back to the drums. Graham counted them in, and they just ripped up another song, and I was just floored. And I thought, man, like, I really want to be able to be be able to play multiple instruments. And I was basically compelled. Like, there was another tab in my brain, and it was, okay, why not put more in there and try to learn more stuff? And so I started to. So again, I started to look up some guitar chords and teach myself, basically, and just learn new songs and kind of slowly chip at it. So I was working at Max, and Clayton ended up coming in. And I I knew who he was. I'd seen him around a little bit, but we never really had many conversations. So I remember talking to him one night. I just said, "Hey, man, like, are you you're Clayton, right?" I said, "You had a band with Dale?" And he just says, "Oh yeah, yeah, like that was a number of years ago, but yeah, we played in a band together." I just said, "Oh, okay, like I'm back up here now, and I don't have anybody to jam with, but I mean, if you wanted to get together and hang out, whatever, that'd be cool." He just says, "Okay, yeah." He says, "Maybe I'll get back to you on it." So I said, "Okay," and it wasn't for a little bit that he got back to me, and we got together and we had a couple of beers and we started kind of making some music together and making more memories than anything, honestly, just getting on the same page and really realizing how much we had in common for music, and really developed a pretty wicked friendship. In that same time, I ended up meeting my buddy Jacob Gettins, who I mentioned in the first podcast. He was into singing, and he was into kitchen work, so he was cooking. And he was always super interested because he was at this pub called Moose Delaney's, and he was in there. He'd always talk about singing up a storm on the line, and jamming out to some metal and really getting into it. So we all kind of got together a couple times, and we wanted to put some songs together because we had a show coming up in December 2nd. It was 2008. So Clayton and I were primarily the members. We named the band Clarity Through Chaos, and we're really proud of it. Honestly, we had some wicked songs, and we recorded some stuff on like an electronic drum kit onto his computer, and we had our first song was called The Beckoning End, and I hadn't really recorded anything before, so to have his experience with recording and kind of like engineering things, it was awesome. I was really pumped, and it was something I just knew that I wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to do music of some sorts. So we did our songs, and we ended up playing our show at the Hideaway Pub in Huntsville, Ontario. And it went pretty well. I mean, I had the community, my drum kit was the community drum kit. So we were the opening band. We played a couple Lamb of God songs and a Parkway Drive song, and things went good. And Clayton and I we jammed for a couple of years after that, and Jacob kind of started doing his own thing, and he was getting into more car stuff and doing more photography and video stuff that I wasn't really aware of because I ended up moving to Alberta in 2010. And when I got here, I was still playing acoustic. I'd actually bought one before we moved out, and my dad and I came out here with nothing lined up for work or anything, but I found something and slowly got into it and kind of built a career out here. But since I came out here, I did actually get another drum kit not long after I was here, and I played that for, I want to say just about a year or so, but I got into photography. And in that time, I was, I guess, more conscious of the volume of the drums, and I figured, you know what, I love playing it, and drums will always be like in my head and just always some part of my musical life. But I ended up selling those for some camera equipment. After that, I've since got into keyboard and piano and started to sing as well. So I took a couple singing lessons, and I was giving good feedback. I did some Corey Taylor, some Aaron Lewis from Slipknot, Stone Sour's Corey Taylor, and Aaron Lewis's Stained. And had some pretty good feedback. I actually did some Three Doors Down as well. And these were songs that I had just sang, for years, and I was comfortable singing. And I was, kind of showing a couple of things here and there in those lessons, and, took it, ran with it. And I've done some covers in the meantime and kind of put it up on my Facebook and whatnot. And I definitely really enjoy playing music and learning music. And if I hear something, I need to know how to play it, then I'm on it. I'm having to look up the tabs or the chords, and I have to sit down, and I really like to try and get it out and, cover it. I need to do more video recordings or actual recordings and put them out there, because I just go through phases of learning things, and, I kind of forget it and go and learn more new stuff and forget it. But I'll never forget just the basic principles of what I'm playing. So I've got the piano, and another band that's really um, sparked some interest and really inspired me is Sleep Token. Their lead singer is a phenomenal lyricist, guitar player, and incredible pianist, and he can rip anything really. I've heard a lot of interesting things from that individual, so I've been very creatively driven to pick up and just do more things and be more open minded with what I listen to, what I put out, and yeah, I think that there's so many boundaries that we set on ourselves musically that I try to tear them down. Honestly, I try to listen to anything. I try to be really open minded, and I try to give everything like a good try. There's just so much music out there, and to think about it, we're never really going to scratch the surface. There's just 8+ billion people on the world. Like, we're going to have a lot of different music. So I try to give as much things as I can a good try. So yeah, with that all said, I think I'm basically up to current time on my musical state. I'm always listening to music. I have a lot of steady things on repeat, but I also Spotify does a really killer job for recommended artists and recommended songs. So I highly recommend sometimes turn that shuffle on and get a new artist or a new song in your ear, and you never know where it'll take you. And share songs with your friends. If you have somebody that loves music, share songs. I really do. I can't stress enough how important it is to get new stuff in your ears, because as good as the stuff is that you've always been listening to, there's always new shit that's going to really throw you for a loop even. You might like things that you just didn't know you would. I think the most important thing about music is that we all perceive it differently. We aren't the artist, we aren't the people that wrote it, but we may have things in our mind or some kind of nostalgic things that we hear lyrics or just certain melodies that kind of bring you back to certain times. And that's what I really do love about music. Yeah, it's in my heart, and it will always be in my heart, and I've got band tattoos all over me. So yeah, music is probably one of my biggest passions. And if you know me, doesn't take very long to figure that out. So anyways, guys, with that being said, I appreciate you tuning in and listening to my ramblings and my shenanigans. It only took me, I don't know, I think 3 or 4 times to get this podcast down. By the way, if you're going to do a podcast, make sure your other microphone is recording. That's a pretty good tip. So anyways, guys, thank you very much for tuning in and again, listening to me. Feel free to follow along. Like and subscribe to any of the channels or the social media platforms that you're following me on. And I will see you guys in the next one.